fist at the universe and say, if only I had a developer or that all these folks have everything and they've got lots of resources and they can just snap their fingers and it comes into fruition. It can be very frustrating. I've watched many kids that I work with who come from very poor backgrounds, who do not have two nickels to get, rub together and do not have food on the table. And they just look out at the windows and they're thinking, I have a great idea and it'll never see the light of day. I'll tell you, AI has democratized this space. It has democratized the playing field. It has given everyday folks the power to be extraordinary and to do extraordinary things. And last night was a case in point. We made some really cool stuff. AI can enhance not just the products, but it enhances who we are as humans and how we relate. So I do see Crazy Jack in the audience. I'm giving you a big hug. You know that it's class time, so we're only bringing folks up that are a part of class. This is the down and dirty version. The version that takes 5 hours last night will take 1 hour this morning. We're just going through everything really fast. For most folks that are here that were here last night, this is just a refresher. Just kind of making sure that that muscle memory is there and that we remember things. For those that weren't here last night, a lot of you already know a lot of the process, and you don't want to know what time, how to make the clock, as they say. You just want to know what time it is. And so you're here to get her done, got her did, and that's what we're going to hope for. I think that my monologuing has given Alisher plenty of time to get things up and running. Um, I'm going to test Cash Money Kev's mic. Please make sure that you are only following links up top or in the Slack channel. We did go over last night why Slack is matters, right? It's a skill set that people need to know. And it helps add another soft skill arrow to their quiver, especially people who have never worked with collaborations and collaborative environments and teams of people that you have to kind of manage, right? A lot of folks are learning, hey, the Slack channel is actually pretty cool. It's got a lot of features and they're dinking around with it. That's really cool because Tech in Schools does afford us the opportunity to use the pro version. So that's why it's really important. Another very, very valuable resource is innovatorsthinktank.com. This is where you go to the next step. You want to surround yourself with other mastermind group type things where you have other entrepreneurs building things out. And everybody knows that when you build, you're pretty much in a box by yourself. The people around you don't understand what you're building. They don't get your mindset. It can be insanely frustrating because you're really excited about something and then you talk to them, and for those of you that are old enough to know, it's like a Peanuts cartoon where you're sitting in class and the teacher's like, well, wah, 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 wah. That's what all of your friends are hearing. And so you want to be around other people that don't hear the wah, 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 wah. They hear, oh my gosh, this was so, jibber jabber jibber jabber, and take an interest in the stuff that you are building. So that is another valuable resource. Obviously, their swag shop is important because the proceeds for the swag shop, I have my coffee mug right here on my desk, Innovators Think Tank, Innovators Fuel. Um, that money goes towards helping your classmates either pay for classes, pay for tools, pay for technology. Some of you need new laptops. Some of you just need a subscription. We try to elevate and lift each other up if we can. And it's a gift that's multiplied because we're living in a new age where your biological family is one, but the pocket family is what you get to cobble together out of these precious souls that show up and are on the other side of a screen in the middle of the night, illuminated and everything. Cash Money Kev, can we test your mic, my love? How are you this morning? Happy Thursday.
I'm good this morning. Thanks, Sarah. I hope you're doing well, and I hope Alex is as well, and everybody here, and all the students that are listening, maybe back as well. Um, just a couple of opening notes for me. Be sure to keep an eye out, guys, for that ITT number 83 link for this Saturday. Hit that reminder, and be sure to show up and support anybody that's pitching their business project or idea. And if you have one as well, you can also apply to pitch on Saturdays on the Innovators Think Tank website. It's under network. and you can apply to pitch right there. It's super easy. Also, if you're stuck in your business right now, we also have the consulting hub. You can schedule a meeting with the ITT team, and we can help you get your business going to the next level. Also, guys, the cutoff was last night for this season, but be sure to keep an eye out on the courses section for the next season, season 8 of the Ideas that Impact series. You don't want to miss out on these classes. They're life changing, like Sarah said. And I mean, I've seen personally so many people and lives get changed over the course of these seasons. It's very heartwarming, and I'm very proud to be a part of the journey and the movement here in these classes. Yeah, so everybody, I hope you had the time to get out your workflow and get your API up. I know Alisher's got the stream up, and he's about ready to jump into things. Also, just one more couple last opening notes from me. If you want to get the app early, the ITT app early before it launches, be sure to DM me to get the beta link, and send me your email. And if you have an iOS or Android device, and I'll be sure to have Luke send you the beta link into that email. Also, Fridays, we have AI Builders with Alisher and Sharon. That space is an insanely helpful education space to, if you want to keep on learning to code other applications, learn different stacks, and keep doing classes like we do here on Wednesdays. It's a great space to get to on Fridays, as well as Sarah's Humans Make Cool Things. Super cool stuff going on there. I love them. That's about it for me for right now. Alisher, I'll hand over the mic. How are you doing this morning, my friend? And we'll let you jump right into it.
I'm doing good. I got my coffee. It's nice and warm today, so I'm doing good. It's a good start. And yeah, we'll jump right in. I think yesterday we took this project, this SaaS wrapper, so to say, and this is actually something we've worked with before a few seasons ago. If you guys remember, when we were doing our Canva project, our Canva clone, we used something very similar. I just built on top of it, and this should allow you guys to get started pretty much right away. The way this works is, if you read through this README file, it has tiers and message limits. So each tier has its own message limits. You can, of course, rework that, or you can just make it where you give people access per page, depending on what tier they're in. Kind of like Pixio, right? If you're in Pixio, you know that images are available on the lowest tier. And then videos and images, that's the next tier up. And then the next tier is 3D models, audio, etc., and everything else. So that's kind of how you can work your different subscription tiers. You don't have to set up Stripe just yet. We didn't do that. So you got like a week to figure that out. Of course, you could always change it. And I'm going to also fork this code. So this is how you typically want to start out. You want to copy the project into your account. Oh, actually, it looks like I can't fork it. That's okay. I'll just use this project. And whenever you want to open the project, you want to go to code and you want to use GitHub Desktop. So if you don't have GitHub Desktop, highly recommend you get it. It's going to make it really easy. And you can just clone it. I'm actually also going to make a branch because I don't want to change that branch, the main one. I'm going to make this ITT Season 7 branch. So I know that this is the one I'm working on. Just makes a copy. So now I have the old copy, and I'm going to have this new one where I'm going to make all these changes. Okay, that's pretty much how you clone the project, right? Inside of this project, why Visual Studio Code is so good is you actually have these buttons where you can view where it's located, you can view that it's on GitHub, and you can also open in Visual Studio Code. you get this kind of one interface in GitHub Desktop where you don't really have to worry too much. It'll remind you of the workflow you need to be following. Because I think that's what most people are trying to get used to, is this workflow of going from GitHub to VS Code. And you guys feel free to come up, ask any questions as we're going through this. Okay, so in here, the first thing I want to do is rename this env. Instead of example, it's just going to be .env. And then I'm going to start filling in these fields. So the first one is Postgres URL. That's our database. And the database is everything related to users, data, messages, workflow, responses, pretty much any sort of persistent data you want to store. Yeah, database equals user data, users, all that. It's kind of like an Excel spreadsheet. It's your tables and columns. And we use Neon for this. So if you guys want to go and check out neon.tech, they have a good free tier. It's I think they give you 10 free databases. So you can build pretty much 10 apps out of that. Here, it doesn't really matter. Azure, AWS. For me, I'm in the East region, so I'm going to look for something that's maybe, it looks like AWS just has more regions. More regions equals better coverage. People will be able to load this data in faster depending on where they are. Project name, we'll call this ITT Season 7, so I know that this is the one I'm working with, because I might change this database. Postgres version, you can keep the latest. And you should just be able to create. These are pretty instant, as opposed to Mongo. If you guys remember, Mongo took a few minutes to load in. One thing Ross did mention about these databases is when you're on the free tier, you'll notice after a while when it's not used, it shuts down, but it starts up again automatically. Pretty much as soon as the user hits a database or tries to log into the app, it'll start up automatically. You won't feel a disruption, typically. So it's good. It powers down and saves some compute when it's not actually in use. Now we have project settings. And here you can actually manage the limits. Was it here? Compute. Yeah, so inside of compute in the settings, you can change it to where it kind of only uses what's most powerful that's available to you, instead of some of the lower end compute. For us, it doesn't really matter, but once you have more and more users, you'll see the limit. Other than that, our database is ready to go. We just need to connect. And looks like here there's a connection string. It's the first option. You can click connect. They give you a whole string just like Mongo. You can show password and just copy it. And that's our Postgres URL. The main difference is just the structure, really. Mongo has something called collections instead of tables or rows, right? Versus Postgres has something, of course, called tables. For us, it's still empty. We haven't filled these in yet. That's those commands you guys ran last night. Right, so our connection string, that's going to go in our env. You'll notice this app, just like most of these apps that are mostly front-end, that don't do any compute, they rely on keys, right? So our first key is this Postgres key. If you've ever launched something like a WordPress, if you guys remember some of the previous seasons, when we worked with something that's on the server, it actually had everything there. It had the application on the server, it had the database on the server, it had all the routing, it was all in one place. Here, you kind of have to rely on different services because it's serverless. It's more of a front end that puts all these services together. So Neon, that's our Postgres URL. That's our database that stores all the user data. Now for Stripe, Stripe doesn't really matter for now. We'll talk about Stripe next time. That's how we accept payments. Okay, auth secret, that's actually something you could generate. And for me, for now, I'm just gonna put secret. Super simple. This is just a development app. But of course, when you go to production, when this is a real app, it's gonna be live that users are gonna access. You would want something a little bit more secure, maybe like a 32 character string that's random. I think Russ has a command somewhere in Slack if you guys scroll up from yesterday. Now, let's see. Now we have our AI tutor keys. So for me, I got to give my workflow ID. I think I'm on that page right now. Deploy. When you're in the workflow, you got to go to deploy, and there you'll find the ID. Starts with WF. And then AI tutor API key, that's in the settings. So if I go back, I can go to settings, and I should have a key. The AI tutor API key starts with SK. Now for our workflows, that's all we need. But if you're doing something like the chatbots, if you're doing streaming, you might need chatbot ID and next public AI tutor token. But for now, we should be fine. So we could save, we can go to file save, you can do control S, command S, depends on your device. And from here, we just have to install the dependencies, which are those node modules, and run this. Oh, and populate the database. Very important. Otherwise, people really won't be able to log in. And this is more of a structured data, although most data is structured. It's just all structured in a different convention. Even if you're familiar with something like Firebase, Firebase data also uses collections, very similar to Mongo. Those are the JSON-based databases. But at the end of the day, it's all data, it's all structured. And if you work long enough, you'll learn how to interchange between the two. Okay, now I need my terminal. I need to run those commands. And what's important is that you have maybe node 20, node 22 for this, because this is the Next.js project. And in this project, you can either use npm or pnpm, right? If you're on the Mac and you have an issue, you can use npm. Otherwise, use pnpm. The only main difference is one is faster.
That's Nancy, Mary, Nancy. Is that right? I want you to make sure to add that to the record, Alisher. When you're saying those letters, can you emphasize them by using the full word acronym so that folks can understand
Sure.
it? Because it's been, yes, it's been
I'll use
very
what it actually stands for.
Oh,
So it's either you're using Node Package Manager, npm Node Package Manager, or Performant Node Package Manager, pnpm.
Thank you.
The only difference is the p in the beginning. Yeah, that's something that came from the original project from Vercel. They're a very pro performant Node Package Manager. It's faster. It builds faster. If you have a chance, definitely go for that one. But if you don't, of course, you could always just fall back to the good old Node Package Manager, which you can, override even if it's giving you an error, and gives you a lot more freedom. So let's do pnpm install or pnpm I, and this will start installing all the dependencies. And so you guys are aware the dependencies are essentially what's making up a lot of these components and a lot of these scripts. So if I go to something like auth, you might find a dependency from React. But yeah, you're gonna notice until you install, you're gonna have all these errors saying that it cannot find that module, it cannot find that dependency. So that's kind of how like Node, React, um, Vue, Nux, pretty much all of these frameworks that are JavaScript-based frameworks work. They rely on packages. So here you guys see there's Next Navigation, there's Zod. These are all packages that it needs. And it lists all these packages in package.json. So in package.json, you can, number one, see what commands you can run. If you're ever like lost or some command doesn't work, in package.json, you can actually see what it supports. And then here's all the dependencies, all the packages that it uses. Really useful because whenever you do npm install, this is what it reads. This is where it's getting its requirements list from, essentially. Just like for every project, you guys have a requirement of what you need on your computer, except this is more automated. And when you start a computer fresh, you'll notice if you, especially ever started, or if you ever start a project fresh, you'll notice, especially if you started with an AI, it'll tell you to install certain things. And when you do npm install React, npm install Next, npm install Stripe, it's going to automatically start adding to this list. There's a lot of things installed here because I used a lot of 20 additions to it for better UI. That's why the installation might take a little bit long. That's why sometimes it takes a little bit longer to compile as well. Right? The more packages you have, the more things that are going on the page, the longer it'll take to compile. There's a lot going on the front page, so. You guys will immediately notice that there's a node modules folder that appears and it's grayed out. And the reason some of these files are grayed out is because they're not going to be committed to GitHub. So if I click on getignore is a file that controls what will be read by GitHub, what will be synced to GitHub. And there's some things you don't want to sync because some things like node modules, for example, right? Because for node modules, we just run a command and it automatically gets them. You don't need to sync those up. Also, there's like thousands, hundreds of thousands of files inside of this node modules folder. And typically they get them from some GitHub, some NPM server instead of having to get them from your actual files. That's how you make the app skinnier, leaner. But if you were to use something like Laravel, for example, a lot of times that is actually on a server. So if you were to go back to vTiger, if you guys remember those vTiger days and WordPress days, those WordPress and vTiger folders, they have hundreds of thousands of files. So just much bigger, less agile applications. This is kind of what makes these applications lighter and agile. They don't rely on compute as much. They just purely rely on the front end. Okay, it looks like it's all installed. Sometimes you might get like packages looking for funding and stuff like that, but as long as it completes without saying error somewhere, you should be all good. Red text doesn't necessarily mean bad. Sometimes red text is just there to encourage you to update, and you don't necessarily need to update. Since a lot of these frameworks are front end, there's really no need for security and the updates. But typically, you do want to keep things up to date for yourself. especially if this is like a real project that you're working on, that you're building out, that you're putting all of your development hours into. This is like your business. This might become your main source of income once you build it out. Then definitely keep things up to date. Now, once you have your ENV, and this is installed, we need to populate our database, our Postgres. And we have these commands in the README. And once again, it's interchangeable. You can either use npm or pnpm, but we just need to generate a migration, because the way Drizzle and Prisma typically work, and really the main difference is, again, just the convention and the structure between the two. If we go to, I'm thinking, where was it? If we go to libdb schema, this is essentially how we built out our Drizzle database, right? So here we have the entire schema of what our database should be like. It's built out in TypeScript, and then Drizzle converts it to Postgres, converts it to SQL. Prisma, the same thing. Prisma has like a different way, different convention of building out a database in TypeScript, and then they just convert it to SQL once again. You know, they both do the same thing. I think they have a studio too. I've never checked out the studio, but might be worthwhile checking out. So when you do generate, it actually creates an SQL file. As you can see, it creates these tables. You'll notice that there's a migrations folder now. And when you go to that migrations folder, you see everything that's new, that's changed. And all you really have to do now is actually migrate. So it's going to take those migrations and automatically run it for you. If you're ever in Supabase does the same thing. It's just a little bit more raw SQL Supabase, and they have like their own front end. Okay, looks like it's all applied. Now our app will actually accept users, have data, save messages. So now we can run this. And typically the way you run it is either npm run dev or pnpm dev. And that will start up the development server. And you have to actually go to it for it to start compiling. This is going to compile page by page. This is how development server works. Is instead of building it out, it builds every page as you go to it. These are all the things you guys can change, by the way. This front page, all these little sliders. These are all different components. There's a little confetti in here, I think. Yeah. And this actually comes with a test user, so you can sign up. Of course, it's always good to test the sign up. But there's a test user. You can read about it in the README. I don't remember what it is now. It's like test.test.com, and 1234 is the password, something like that. Now, typically, when you make a user, the way this app works is you'll be taken to your basic home screen. It's going to put you on the free tier unless you have Stripe set up, and you have 5 messages in the workflows. Right? The only thing that counts messages right now and saves to your database is these workflows. So you'll notice there's also workflow history. So if anybody ever runs something, it's going to save to the history, to the database. And you have some other things here like chatbot streaming you guys can check out once you set that up. And if you've worked with the AI Tutor API before, you also will need a token. You can find the token here too. And these are all things that are customizable, right? If you want to completely change your sidebar, once you have maybe 5, 6, 7, 10 workflows, you can change that. You can turn them into drop downs, different categories. Kind of like what you see in the AI Tutor right now. And it's collapsible. I like this more of an iPad mode. Oh, and another neat thing about Next is they have some debug tools and dev tools. If you look here on the bottom left, there's this end that's typically not visible on the website. But when you're in dev mode, it kind of helps you debug. So some things here is routes is dynamic, so that's good. Meaning that instead of, I guess, naming things what they are, almost everything is named page.tsx or route.ts. And then the folders are named. And then TurboPack just means it uses some of the faster compiling versus Webpack. TurboPack is the newer one. And also here you can find some issues if you have any. You can also hide DevTools, but it'll come back once you refresh. Okay, so any questions about actually launching this project? I have the StreamYard in the Slack. You have all the links in the Slack if you guys want to join. Feel free to come up as a speaker. And then we're going to go into the workflow. So now I also build a workflow. We have like half an hour. Maybe we'll also change what this looks like. So everybody is good. Everybody's up to this part where they got to put their workflow in. Awesome. So now for the workflow, we talked about this yesterday, but you kind of have to match up the variables, right? And the variables are the inputs. So what is the user inputting? And if I take a look at my workflow, I'm going to use this Google ad example. And this is from last week where we wanted to generate some ads. I just I edited it to be a better prompt. It has 2 entries, but I think we can get away with just 1. And what I noticed is if you use Sonar, it will actually read the web page. So you might be able to give it a website. So maybe for content, we'll put website and we'll see how it does. Right, everything else, some things for naming, you might want to keep it either one word or if you want something that's 2 words, what I would say is the second word should start with a capital letter. So if I wanted website content, it would be website, lowercase w, content, capital C. And then pretty much use the exact same thing for label. Just keep it consistent. But for now, I already have it all as 1 word. And I have 2. I'm only going to use content, but you can change the code. You can give it to AI Tutor and have 2 inputs versus just 1 line. For content, you might want to use text area. The main difference between text and text area is just the amount of text. Okay, guys, any questions about building your prompt, models, these inputs? And yeah, from here, all we got to do is now adjust our code, right? We're no longer doing the storyteller thing. We're gonna do this content and then it creates an ad for us. And I see you requested, John, so I'm gonna approve you right now. Okay, now how do we navigate? How do we find these pages? I think that's an interesting question, right? Because last time we kind of just gave you to what page you guys need to go to versus actually finding some of these pages. So let's check out the template. Where did I have it? Right. So check this out, guys. The way these pages work is whenever you go to each page, you'll notice it's inside of dashboard / page name, right? And that's kind of how you need to start orienting yourself. If you're Next.js, it'll be different depending on the framework. We're using App Router. So the way it works is the name of the folder is actually the name of the page that you're on. If you were in Pages Router, the name of the page, the file, is actually what page you're on. But here it says we're in dashboard workflow. And if we go to our code and try to navigate, since this is App Router, the first folder will be app. Then here we have dashboard. And as you can see inside of dashboard, you'll find the workflow folder. Then eventually, once you go down the grapevine, vine, so to say, through dashboard folder, workflow, you'll find this page.tsx. All of these pages in here, you'll notice, are named page.tsx. That's kind of how the whole dynamic routing works. Is you have generic names for pages like page.tsx, and then the folders have the unique name and the unique file structure. And here we are on the workflow page. And this is where you can edit a lot of the things that you see here on the front end, like AI story generator, workflow, enter your story prompt, generate story. So what we want to do now is, since this is like a Google ad generator, I want to change where it says story on the front end here for me to add. So where I see AI story generator, this gradient text, I'm going to change it to Google ad generator. Then where it says enter your story prompt, I'll change it to enter your website content. And then you can go kind of reading through the code, seeing what each part does. And what you're going to find is a lot of these things that are in English. Like right here, you see, e.g., tell me a story about a magical forest. Well, you can look for that, right? So if I go to Control F, if I pull up the document search, I can look for tell me, and then you'll find eventually that line. And here it could be content from your website or your website URL. Then you'll see things like generate story, right? Again, you can go searching. That's the easiest way to replace what the text itself on the front end says, is actually searching by having spaces, having capitals, because typically in just the raw JavaScript code, you're not going to have a lot of spaces. A lot of the JavaScript code, you'll notice, it's one long string with very few spaces. Versus the actual front-end text is going to have some spacing. So instead of generate story, I'm going to generate add. And some of the things you'll also notice is some of these are components. Right, so here you have story display, workflow history drawer. Those are also things you can actually edit. So if we look for story display, you have a few ways to search in VS Code. This is kind of where VS Code really comes in handy, is instead of rummaging through the files, rummaging through all these folders, because you could have hundreds and hundreds of folders here, depending on how big or how small your app is. So let's look for this story display, even though it tells us where it is. I'm just gonna start typing story display. And then here you'll notice this is another piece of a component. Doesn't look like there's anything else here that we need. Cool. And then another one was this workflow history drawer. So here's the workflow history drawer. And then in here, really, I just want to change workflow history to maybe add history. So this is just a good starter way for you to guys start kind of changing what it actually says. No generated ads found. And now when you're done with some of these front end changes, you can save. And you'll notice we actually haven't made the main change, which is the variables. So I just wanted to make sure that some things that I don't want to change when I do the mass change, I do first. And then we have to do that mass replace all. So there you go. Google Ad Generator, your website content, generate ad. All these front end changes, typically, you don't need to restart your app to make these. Now I want to change where I actually use a story in the code. And for that, I'm going to use replace all. So the way we used replace all yesterday is we first did lowercase story, right? And we did match case and we did match whole word. And that way you're essentially getting rid of cases where story is part of a bigger word, like history, right? Contains story. So imagine if you were to replace all and it replaces the story part in history, might cause some issues. So you just want to make sure that only the standalone lowercase story is replaced everywhere. And then I'm going to replace it with content because that's my actual variable that I'm using in the AI Tutor API. And then we'll preserve case. So when it changes, it's all still lowercase or whatever case that you're using. And then we can replace all. Now we also have story that starts with capital S. Because sometimes you have things like set story. Right? Whenever you have these functions and states, there's the actual state and then there's the set state. So that's how you change all that as well. There you go. Ooh, I replaced content. That's funny. I accidentally replaced something I didn't need to replace. And in that case, let's see if I can undo. Yeah, there you go. Let's do this replace all again. And now we'll try to go case by case. And when you go case by case, you can actually split screen, not great. But anyway, it gives you the split screen where it shows you what you're replacing. So here, this page doesn't really matter too much to me. So I'll replace it, that's fine. Replace this as well. And you can go case by case. And when you're going case by case, you can see each mention that you're replacing. So for example, this import is what I replaced last time that kind of messed it up. So I'm actually going to avoid that. I'm going to go to the next one, replace that. I think the rest of these are okay to replace. There you go. When you go case by case, looks like there's no errors. Except content display on there.
Folks, if you know from last night, you will know emphatically if something goes wrong. Your screen will be red. So whenever there's no errors on anybody's screen, we do a happy dance, just so you know. Continue, Alisher.
Yeah. Also, looks like my screen's a little bit glitched because I'm having errors from like things that like that aren't installed, but they are installed because we're actually, we're on the app and it's working. So sometimes VS Code glitches out. So don't panic. Um, sometimes you'll get errors like these where it says I don't have React, but I do because I ran npm install. And in that case, maybe closing and reopening some of these might solve the issue. Closing and reopening VS Code might solve the issue. I get these errors a lot too. And each person's VS Code, for some reason, is different from the next person. So, yeah, it's not detecting any of the modules that are installed, but that's okay. As long as you go to the app, your app will typically give you an error if you don't have something installed. It'll say cannot find module. But in our case, I can go. Looks like it's working. Let me make sure it's all saved. Great. And now let's give it a URL. Let's test out this workflow. And a good thing to do before you test things out is to inspect and go to network settings. And what that helps you with is to see all the requests you're sending out because you're interacting with an API. So this will be useful. You're able to see what your network sends and what it receives. And let's give it mytsi.org because last time that worked. And now when you do generate, of course, again, since this is a dev server, it essentially needs to um, compile everything every time you run it. But when it's live, it'll be much faster. And some things you can see in the network already is trying to get the message limit every time. That's just something I have set, right? I have it set to maybe like every 10 seconds. And you see it tells me it's a free tier. You have 5 messages remaining. It's not unlimited. And then we have this run. You could also see what I'm sending, right? I send the website. Okay, it looks like it can't really read the URL, so let's just give it all the content. I'm gonna copy the front page. I guess we'll just use it later as a source. I noticed it actually picked it up. In this case, I just gotta go back and change my prompt. And to change your prompt, you don't have to change the code. The code can remain the same. Okay, so this is not bad. All I have to do is just structure this a little bit better and change the front end a little bit here to actually make it look presentable. Because right now it's just one big block of text. But that's next time. For now, what we actually need to do is put this on Vercel, where we can make it public, because right now nobody can access this. Any questions on actually making changes, like some of these front-end words or the variables? You can see this in history, by the way, guys. Another thing about history is you can click on them, and it'll actually change this for you. So you can reread it, rerun it. Maybe if you're in history, you want to add a download button. So you can give users some sort of a very structured, very well-designed document and have them download it here. What's up, John?
I'm a little bit behind. I had a bunch of stuff to do this morning, and I got some later.
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
I'm a little bit behind. I got some stuff to do now and some stuff to do later. Can you post the videos to this? And I'm pretty sure I can get through it, but would I be able to DM somebody if I have an issue over the weekend or something?
Sure. We'll try to help you out if we have time. And another thing is for the videos, you could always just go back to. You don't have to wait for me to post. You can go back to the space and go like find your way back to the live stream. You can go to the ITT website where the course is and this week, and in that Twitch you'll find the recording as well. Because these recordings, especially on X, they stay forever.
Thank you so much. And I love this thing that you created or found or what have you. It's awesome. So thanks so much, Alistair.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Like if you don't want to use this, you can actually just go get the original because there's not much changes that I made. I just made some, cosmetic changes. And you can build on top of the original. It's even simpler. It's even more scaled down. And sometimes, simpler is better, especially when you're just starting out. Did anybody else have a question before we go to Vercel and put this up?
I have a quick question.
What's up?
Yeah, so I'm looking at what you have on the screen right now, your Google ad generator. I'm not sure what the model you're using, but it says, okay, let's tackle this query. I'm not able to access external links. I don't know. Is that an issue or not an issue?
Yeah, this was just an earlier test. It's not able to access. I think I have Sonar, but Sonar, the way it accesses external links is by giving you sources. You have to tell it to search the internet. You can't tell it to search a specific website.
Okay, because yeah, my use case is going to be similar to that. So I was just curious if, the model selection is the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Sonar. Let's see. Oh, I gotta switch. I'm using the most basic Sonar. Gotta bump it up a bit to Pro. Maybe that'll help me out. And also here I can do web page content. But also a lot of websites. What I'll say to watch out for. Sometimes the way websites display content can't exactly be read by AI. For example, if you're in WordPress, right? Sometimes in WordPress, you might have a builder that might necessarily not let you select the text. And when you can't select the text, or when you just have like a website that's just full of graphics, there's not exactly words there for the AI to read. And it can't just, see the website like we see the website with our eyes. Um, so you kind of got to rely a little bit more on words. But there's vision too. And eventually we'll have image uploading.
Okay, thank you.
And for me here, really, I just have to edit the prompt. Let's see what else we got. Right. We can go straight to result. Any more questions, guys?
I have a quick question that's related back to the code I tried to ask earlier. I had to jump off of X because the whole thing. I asked a question and my whole app crashed. Um, but I'm back. So question was back in VS Code when you were looking through the code trying to find. This is more of a setup question, has nothing to do with the actual app. But when you were looking through your errors, and you had the split screen thing there, and you went over and you went to the actual error in the code. On that page, where the error was, showed up a little red dot showed up right at the location, and it was quite bright, and it just kind of like drew your eye right to it. What is that something in the setup of VS Code that you've got set that I don't know about yet?
I don't know. VS Code setup is pretty standard for everybody. It's just the syntaxing and the color. That's going to be the same for everybody.
Okay, thank you. I've
I'm
not
not sure
seen
what
that
bright
before,
dot you're
so.
talking about. Like on the side over here, where
Well,
there's
no,
blue right now.
it was in the middle. The part that the part that the middle of the code had a I don't know. There was a. Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. I got AI.
Like if you have an error, it underlines it in red. It also shows it
Well,
here
well,
when
it
you
underlined it, but yours had a little like almost looked like a little stop sign dot. It was right in the middle of the page where the error was, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." It kind of showed where the actual error was set, but that's okay. I'll look it up and find out what it was.
here. I'm back to where I was. Right. I have this error. It's not really a dot. You can scroll to it. That's about it. Just remember, guys, error, underline in red, and if you go to problems, you can actually see it there as well. But problems only reads the things you have open. If I don't have any of these open, I'm not gonna really have anything in problems. So you don't really know that you have an error until you either go to that page or until you try to build, or until you go to Vercel and try to launch it. So the way you want to launch your Vercel is first you want to commit to GitHub. Right here I have my GitHub. I'm gonna say change workflow from AI story to ad generator. And then I can commit, I can push. It's a two-step process. You commit to kind of put in a little vault, so to say. You can have like 100 commits in there before you finally push it. Because you don't need to push with every commit, right? If you're making multiple changes um, a day, maybe you want to push every time at the end of the day. Maybe you want to push at the end of the week with all your changes. It's up to you. I typically don't push until I'm like done building something out, done building out a feature. And then you can actually put in a summary exactly what you changed. Highly recommend using the summary and description. It'll make it a lot easier for you. Because then if you have an error, you can quickly go back to the summary and find what's been changed. Okay, now in Vercel, I should be able to see that this has been changed. So let's refresh. For me, I'm gonna have to start this project, and I might also need to. What's going on here? Ew. I have to make a branch. Yeah. Or not a branch. I have to make a new repo. So I already have a fork. Um,
Cash Money Kev, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Sarah. I was wondering if I was lagging.
I'm very insecure at the moment. I've been kicked out of the space a couple of times, and Alisher has gone silent. So I was kind of looking around in the background. I don't know if it's a Twitter thing. I do know, folks, if the live stream is freezing on you, you have to refresh it. And you may get kicked out of Twitter if that happens, or X. I'm not exactly sure what is happening. I am definitely on eggshells. So it's probably not you, folks. And if you can hear me, excellent. If you can't, please make sure to, notify Cash Money Kevin. I'll do another lap. But Alisher, are you still speaking, hun? I'm not hearing him at all, Cash.
He's taking a quick lap. Yep.
Yeah, there is something. The stability of X is weird as of late, and I will tell you, while we wait for him to kind of come back up, I do have Premium Plus, and they just raised our rates to $50. So I'm deciding whether or not I'm going to keep it. But many people are really, really definitely suffering. So I'm not exactly sure. Alisher, can we test your mic, hon?
Yeah, I had to take a lap because earlier, even though I was co-host, it said request. I just couldn't speak at all. And I guess
Yeah,
at some
we
point it
noticed
just
that.
cut off.
All is well now. You may continue, and we will close it out with gusto, as we say.
Yeah, and another thing for message limit is let me see if I can do this in the database. If actually set the number for message limit, let's say like 50, it should actually read that. This is, I think, for Masha. Masha asked the question in Slack. So let's see. Go back to my Chrome. Oh, no, it's still set to 5. So it's just hard coded somewhere in a code, just to prevent abuse. Let's see. Maybe in limit. I'll message about this in a Slack, where exactly you can kind of completely unlock that for the first one. It does set in a few places, and also Neon. Another thing you could do is you can make a -1 as well, and you can change your plan name. So it's the -1 maybe unlimited. But yeah, for now, what I recommend is current message. Just change it back to 0.
Just wanted to jump in real quick. I tried those values in in tiers, like in the lib folder, but this didn't work as well because I kind
Yeah,
of figured it's
what
hard coded
tier?
somewhere. But it would be great if you could take a look.
Yeah, because the way tiers works is it kind of inserts it when people sign up. So you could try to sign up for a new account, but it is hard to go to someone. I'll find where it is. Because this project was like a few weeks ago.
It's okay. Thank you very much.
Cornex, I see that your hand is up. I'm not sure if you're in class at all. Usually we only bring up the folks that are in class. Did you have a question regarding the project that we're working on for Alisher?
Yeah, I do have a question. I don't know. Can you hear me?
I can, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I'm sure. First of all, I'm sorry I couldn't be part of the beginning, the first time the class started. But I guess I had to join. I joined yesterday, and I got to catch myself up with everything I must have missed. But I think I can still follow because of the explanation that has been made today. But I want to be sure. I know this is API, AI Tutors API that we connect to in order to power our own website. So I want to be sure if we can use this after the class, and if we cannot use it after the class, that is for any other use aside from just the lesson today. If there's any other way,
So
like
that's a good question. That's a good question. If you have AI Tutor, you you could get
Alisher,
AI
you're
Tutor
muted,
API
honey.
for free.
Alisher, you're muted. It's a muffled sound.
Oh, that's okay. Can you hear me now?
There you go. Perfect, perfect,
Okay.
perfect. Now repeat your answer
Yeah.
to Cornex.
So
Yes.
if you have AI Tutor, like if you have AI Tutor Premium, AI Tutor Ultra, you can use the API. Otherwise, we're going to be rolling out pricing for just the API, probably after we're done with the season. But for now, everybody who has AI Tutor, you could sign up for free. You can DM Tech and Schools if you need to get access. I think registration is disabled for now, since most of us signed up the first week. But yeah, if you have AI Tutor, just DM Tech and Schools, and you'll be able to get it. We'll enable registration, and you'll be able to register.
okay, I don't have AI tutor, but I will send a DM. Thank you.
I don't see Tech and Schools here, but you could also DM me, and I'll send you the exact account. Wait, are you in Slack?
Yeah, I'm in Slack.
Oh, perfect. Just DM Ross in Slack. Even better.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Just DM Ross. But yeah, for I think we'll try to make it open for the duration of the season. But afterwards, you'll either need a tutor or you'll just need to get the API separately. And typically, what we do is we do monthly pricing. We don't do like per credit, per token pricing. If you guys run Pixio API, that's like monthly per amount of machines that you run, pretty much, depending on your traffic. Now, any questions? And also, Masha, for you, I found it. It's in utils. So it's DB utils. And here you can find where it's, I think, is being enforced.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so I changed that to 20. I think if you set -1, it'll probably be unlimited. I think that's something I might need to change to be a little bit more dynamic. But for now, we can note that as a fix. Let's see. I'm gonna type this in Slack. It's in lib db utils.
It works. This is amazing. Thank you, Alisha.
I am clipping every single one of those because you know what? Last night, Magna did the same thing, and it was just so joyous. Masha, I love you, and the voice. It was just like, ah, you can see the sparkle or you can hear it. And I just love that
Yeah, I
so,
mean, I
so
was going
much.
crazy yesterday and well, the entire day today because I had to always reset those message counts, and I thought like this can't be true. Like this must be somewhere, and Alicia found it, and this is so brilliant.
I'm giddy for you. I love this. This is why volunteering is so much fun. I kid you not. And you know what? I hope that each and every one of you get to experience this moment of Cash Money Kevin, I, and Alisher, Nick, Nick and Ross also in the background, sitting in this chair and hearing that voice. You know what? When you transfer your skills to somebody else and you get that light bulb moment, I can't explain it. It's just so freaking awesome. And I'm so excited for you, Masha. You got to win today, and your whole entire weekend's going to change because now you are not going to sleep, love. You are not going to sleep because now you know how to do it, and it is going to become a brain worm, and it's going to keep you up all flipping night because you're going to think of all the wonderful things you can do. And I love that because now, you're surrounded by other people that are not going to sleep too, and that's kind of great. Go ahead, Alisher. Go ahead.
Oh,
Your
I
mic is
got
off too, so we see that
is
you're
it that?
unmuted, but we can't hear you. Now I can hear
Yeah,
you.
it's weird. X is becoming worse and worse when it comes to audio, especially if you're a speaker. I have to re-add my project to GitHub just because since I made the project, I can't fork it for some reason. So I have to quickly save it as a zip and re-add it to my GitHub.
Well, it's such a weird thing because, X really wants to push us into an omni media kind of channel where you're teaching class here and then you're able to have the split screen or the screen. But when you don't have reliable audio or you have so many people looking at so many different screens at the same time, the user experience or just the student experience, you can't get into that flow state. We've been talking about workflow, right, for the past two sessions. And you, as a human computer, need to have an unfettered workflow because every time there's a layer of friction, you forget what you're going to say, you forget what you were thinking because we're like little goldfish, right? We have the attention span of a goldfish, right? So every time something like that happens, that's what occurs. And so it is very sad because there are a lot of people that get distracted. But go ahead, Alisher.
Right. Actually, that was pretty quick. I was able to re-add it. So Vercel, let's launch this to Vercel. Should be quick. Vercel, as you guys know, free hosting. Host as many websites as you want. Just watch out for that edge compute and some of these databases that they have. In case you didn't know, Vercel does have Supabase and Neon, except in Vercel, it's not free. So when you go to those websites, it is free, but when you do through Vercel definitely, I think maybe it's like less than $1 a month or something like that for a database. But still, eventually when you have traffic, it becomes a lot more because it's all just based on traffic. Right. You'll notice in your Vercel, you'll have your latest project. It'll say, it'll be the first one on top. It'll have like however many minutes ago that you had the update, and then we can import. And when you're importing, um, you need your envs, right? So for me, I'm gonna copy these over, and you can just paste them all at once, and then you deploy. And typically, this is about a minute, 2 minutes, quick build. And once it builds, you only really need to change the URL and redeploy. Everything else should be set. And then once you have your Stripe set up, you'll paste in your Stripe, you'll paste in your webhook secret, you'll paste in your auth secret, the proper one. But yeah, if you want to update env and add variables, it's not going to be done in the file for Vercel. Instead, it'll be done in the Vercel dashboard because that's more secure. Especially considering, I want you guys to be very careful when you fork a public repository. Your fork is also public. So when I click on fork, I can click on view existing forks and see your projects actually. So if you forked it and you left it on public, for example, I see Masha's project, I see Rose project. Yeah, if the fork is public, typically your project will be public too. So in this case, you want to be very careful about your ENV values, and you only want to keep them in the Vercel dashboard when it's live. It should not be anywhere in GitHub. You can track the build as well. And there it is. And let's see what URL it gave me. So it looks like I have this long URL. That's fine. Perfect. And now I just have to change this URL and I have to redeploy. So this is one of my variables. I'm gonna go to settings, environment variables. And you could also set up different environments, right? So if you're testing when it's live, you might want a development environment, a preview environment. And when it hits production, that's the one with all the live keys, right? Typically, you might have different databases, you might have different stripes for testing, different URLs, and that's when you set up those environments in Vercel. But for now, I just got to change my base URL, and for some reason, it did not give me a prompt to redeploy. So I have to redeploy it manually. What's up, Rutro?
Yeah, is there what's the steps to they're public. Can we make it private?
I'm not too sure, but let's see. Let me go to
I just
settings.
tried, and it said you can't make a public no, you can't make a fork private. You can't change the visibility.
Yeah,
That's what it
you
told
can.
me.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I was like poking around. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm missing something. Okay.
Rutro, you're just going to have to create an alias. Everybody knows you. You're famous as a Rutro when you have a different account. You know what? Honestly, folks, there is some merit to the degenery of Web3 and having a layer of anonymity. We do talk about building in public and having everything open source, but if someone else has made it public and you're forking from a public repo, then you can't kind of squirrel it away. That is the ethos of open source, is that we are all sharing and we're all hat tipping those that have come before us. And so squirreling it away behind a secret whatever, that's counterintuitive to working in a collaborative environment. But that said, um, you know, we were all born, us Gen Xers, before the internet, right? So all of our stupid is hidden, right? You want to make sure that you have, a practice little sandbox for yourself, so that if you do cause something catastrophic, that you're not going to have to wear that badge of honor all the time. Having those layers of learning, as we say, is smart. So I'll just leave that one there and let you marinate on it. But it's all out in
Yeah,
public, folks.
that actually makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, I was like, well, do I want that out there? I don't know. I was just testing the waters. Thank you.
You know what? It's better safe than sorry. It's also like having a prepaid credit card, right? So that you are, safe fences. Big fences make good neighbors, right? And it is something that we all have to kind of collectively think about, because honestly, and I know this is kind of a sidetrack, but you're creating a business, right? And you want to make sure that you're protecting that entity also. And so sometimes, like if you look at my public timeline, it's very curated in what I share. I've obviously had to have this account to document my kids' hack schooling journey and maker fairs and all that other stuff for the past 20 years. But that being said, I don't share a lot of really truly personal things. It's things that emphasize that brand or that, what people know you for. So here, while you're sitting here in class and you're thinking, I actually want to make a go of this. I want to create businesses with this. I want to go forward with this. Then marinate on having a business GitHub and having your own playground separate, because it is important that you marinate on all of those little pieces and make sure that you are safeguarding, you know, your family, your business, those kinds of things. These are things that we need to talk about a lot. And like Cash Money said, they have behind the scenes. If you are new to business and you don't have a business acumen, you've always been a W-2. That means you're signing, the back of the check, not the front of the check. You haven't had a 1099 before. You need to have a different kind of acumen. You need to have maybe some mentors and some tutors to help you build your business out in a correct way. That's where Innovators Think Tank comes in. But, Nick Alisher and Ross also have built businesses, built nonprofits, gotten those grants. So make sure that you're keeping those people, just like that Slack channel and your soft skills, the people that you are taking this class with, they all come to the table with lots of interesting things and skills and experiences that can help you too. But this would be one of those moments that put it in the notebook. Hey, I probably should have a GitHub just for my business and not just me personally. That might be your next step. So,
Well,
go ahead.
a quick one. I guess sort of the reason I sort of ask, I mean, because we're forking off the public one already, and if you go to the original one, you can just look to see who's forked it, then they can just go to yours. I mean, it's fine to put out, we're just sort of testing and going through all the steps, but when we actually do ours, the real one, I guess, the one that you want to make as a business, I think I want that sort of private, but I, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm a little twisted in the head. Yeah.
No, you're not twisted at all. It's always going to be anything that you do on the internet is public. Okay. But you can add layers of kind of anonymity. Think about it this way. How many of those big corporations that and wear logos for and everything else have shell companies? Many, many shell companies, right? It's a way of, I don't want to say laundering information, but definitely making it a little less easy for the everyday person to find. Now, granted, technology is fast closing that that window and making it much easier for people to make those connections. But it is something that you're thinking about that everybody else thinks about. Hey, if I'm building a business like this, I don't want to have all my trade secrets out there, right? Even though they're open source and everything else. But by and large, I will tell you this, and I hope that this brings solace and maybe calms those anxiety. People who are hiring you, they might have all of the stuff. They just don't want to do it. It's like me. I do not want to change my own oil ever because I know how to change oil. I know how messy it is. I know how nerve wracking it is. I hate it. I don't like having oil all over my stuff and yada yada. I know how to do it, but I'm still too damn lazy to do it myself, right? A lot of people are looking at what you're building right now, your enhanced products. They can go to sale right this moment. And 9 times out of 10, it's because they're too lazy to do it. Everybody, ideas are a dime a dozen. It's the ones that are actually implemented that are valuable, right? Um, how many times have you sat in a lawn chair around the pool with your buddies, drinking an adult beverage and saying, hey, I have the best idea. And then 5 years later, somebody comes down the pipeline, has the same freaking idea. And you're like, wait a second, I had that idea drinking beer with my buddies in that lawn chair. And I can't believe they stole my idea. Nah, they thought of something the same time, but they figured out and MacGyvered a better way to do it. And that is the beauty of human nature and the entrepreneurial mindset is that you have the onus on you to flesh that sucker out. And I'll tell you, with my lunar project, right? It's all open source. And I'm hoping and banking on someone fixing what I did because I did the best thing I could with the tools I had to have that use case and that patent. I am hoping and hoping that someone outdoes me, because it means that what's out in the universe and out in the real world is going to be exponentially better, and less people are going to get scammed, and more people are going to have that digital notary. And the idea of, you know, a tethered object, I want that out in the wild, and I need somebody to help me make it better, because it helps everybody. So it just depends on what your North Star is, what your motives are. But deep down, we're playing and we're having a lot of fun. And there are ways to muddy the waters, as they say. But, it is what it is. And I'm really proud of you, Robo. You're doing some fantastic stuff, and asking questions like that and having us discuss it in the public domain is important, because everybody's thinking the same thing. Don't think you're you're unique in that respect. Everybody's thinking that.
At the same time, I'm just so I don't want to, like, because some of the other things from the past were sort of private and like, don't you share it, and I have that in the back of my head too, so I don't want to
Well,
share
that's
something I'm not
absolutely
supposed to.
true. You should have what I have on my computer. I have sticky notes. I have green things that are things that I can share, and then I have red things, which is like your API key or your crypto seed phrase and all those other things that you're not allowed to do. You know what? Sometimes those visuals help. And as you get older, you're gonna need them more. So, but at any rate, Alistair, go ahead and finish us out today.
Oh, wait, if you want this repo private, just download the zip and re-add it to your GitHub as a private repo.
Yeah, as we were talking, I sort of played around and went, there you go. Okay.
I'm gonna make sure to clip that too. Clip that in the recording.
I came really quick, guys, because I was finishing something I wanted to tell you while you guys are still here. The AI Tutor API officially now supports scraping with Firecrawl. So you know that option, you were like, what do I do with that? I put it in the Jumbotron so you can see what to do with that. You basically ingest content. So you could say, go to this website, figure out a Google ad I could do. Kind of what you were just doing, but you don't need Sonar this time. You could use like Claude Sonnet and use the web scraping feature, which is powered by Firecrawl, awesome company, and open source. And Rutro, this is what you were trying to do. So now you could actually do it. And to your other point, you should keep it private if it's intellectual property, right? So if you're going to go public and you're going to do stuff you don't want people to see, make a new repo, take it private, and then you're good to go.
Okay, thanks.
I would leave it public if there's nothing there that is part of your company or intellectual property. But when you fork it, it is public. You definitely got to remember that.
Yeah, I was just sort of thinking back with the code with Antonio thing,
Well,
the
that's
campaign.
would you know why though?
Yeah,
Code with Antonio's for sale. You can pay him
exactly.
$50 to get his code, right? You guys get it because it's like different. It's part of Idea to Impact. But outside of that, you got to pay Code with Antonio, so you don't want to put it live on GitHub public. But with this, it's public by nature for all the customers for the AI Tutor API. So you can make a choice and elect to be private. That's totally acceptable and fine. But yeah, it was annoying me that it didn't work yesterday, so I stayed up last night and fixed it. So now it works. That's my tiny announcement for the day.
Any last
Thanks,
questions
thanks,
before we
Charles.
end,
Oh,
guys?
I thought your mic wasn't working for a second. I was just sorry for stepping on toes.
Final questions. All right. Well, if there's no questions, remember, guys, what you want to do is, I guess, the homework is try to get to Vercel, try to deploy it, get to that part. I think most of you already deployed last night, so you should all be set. Now you just got time to edit your prompt, edit your workflow, and then we'll see you guys next week. And next week, what's up, Magna?
Yeah, I know next week we're going to do Stripe install. Is there a document that gives us all the options that you want us to look at on Stripe, or we're gonna just wait and do it step by step?
No, there's no document. I mean, you can read through the README, right?
Yeah,
And you
that
you
works.
could piece it
Thanks.
together, but that's about it. You're gonna have to wait for next week.
That's cool. Thanks. Yeah, I was sorry. I was out. And I went ahead and got myself a Stripe account, but I was reading through all the documentation on Stripe, trying to figure out how to set up some stuff, and that's why I was asking. But I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty much gonna be about the same setup as last season. Stripe setup typically it's about the same for every app. Go ahead, John. I see your hand is raised.
So you have innovation space this weekend, or you usually do. Is there any other space that you'd have if I do some work before it? If I have a question or two, I could ask away, or what would be the
Well,
best?
the spaces me and Sharon do on Friday are not related. We do something else.
All right. Well, I'll just chart
If you have a question, just like DM me, DM Ross.
and I'll talk to. I think. Yes. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. See you for week 3.
Well, I just want to jump in. Thanks for everybody who came today. If you are needing any help, obviously, check us out in the background on the Slack channel. I do also hope that you're learning how to use Slack also. That is something that's very important. And if you need help with that, Nick, Alisher, and Ross can help you. Please don't try to